Ladies and gentlemen, what's up, peoples? What's up, peoples? It's good to see you all as usual. You know, we in a laid back atmosphere in my room, in my bedroom to be precise. You can see all that bunch of clothes in the background there. Remember, you can chat, leave your comments in the comment section, or sorry, not the comment section, the chat section. Those of you who want to join as a group, I know some of you guys are on vacation, some of you guys are not. Leave your comments right over there. You see the title, the DCEU, Deeper Meanings and Connections Between the Trilogy. And we're going to talk about some of those things right now. But first and foremost, we're going to go from passage of scripture, and then we're going to move on from there. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing pretty good. I hope everybody's doing pretty good. You know, day to day is always, some things look mundane, some things don't look so mundane. You know, day-to-day dealings can be interesting, can be challenging sometimes not. Some days you're up, some days you're down. I understand it, folks. I understand. I go through it myself. And that's the aspect of us that sometimes we don't comment on. But on this channel, we comment on all kinds of things relevant to each other, because we're all about building community. We're all about, building up each other. Remember, you can always leave your comments in the chat section. Leave your comments in the chat section. And we're going to keep it bubbling with you guys right now. So I'm going to just go to screen share right now. We go to screen share. Hope everybody's doing well. We're up in screen share right now. So you should be seeing this in front of you right now. All right. We're going to talk about all of that in a minute. You know, stuff that you may not have missed and all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. But first, some scripture. This scripture is interesting because usually when we read scripture, we don't really interpret it this way. Check this out. It's very popular. It says, your word, for those religious people who know scripture, they quote this all the time. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I have sworn I will perform it, that I will keep your righteous judgments. All right. I am afflicted very much. Quicken me, O Lord, according to your word. Accept, I beseech thee, the free will offerings of my mouth, O Lord, and teach me your judgments. I wanted to read all of that because a lot of times people think of the word of God as, say, the Bible. But this is not what David is talking about right there. He is literally talking about when God speaks to him, it opens up his mind. He says, it's a lamp unto my feet. It opens up his mind so he can move. He can actually execute things. And it's also saying a light unto my path. It enlightens him so he knows the direction he's supposed to go in. Okay. It also goes on to say something that I think is rather interesting. He then goes on to make a declaration. He himself speaks a word. Okay. He speaks a word. He says, I've sworn and I will perform it, that I will keep your righteous judgments. Then he comes back and he says, man, but I'm afflicted very much. So please give me the power to fulfill what I just said. He says, I'm afflicted very much. Quicken me, O Lord, according to your word. Remember, he begins by saying your word is a light. And he says it's a lamp. It's a lamp for my actions. And it's a light so I can see my way. And then it goes on to say, I will perform this. I will perform your righteous judgments. And then he goes on to say, please quicken me, strengthen me, give me that life to be able to do that. Now, it's very interesting because what David was saying was, oh, I see it now, Lord. And I feel the power to do it. I'm going to do it, Lord. And he says, give me the power to do it. This is basically what he's saying. All right. And that's empowerment, folks. That's what empowerment's all about. And I wanted to break it down for you guys before I go into what I'm going to say. And remember, everything I say is about communities. It's about us getting stronger. It's about us seeing the possibilities within ourselves. Communities start with each individual, then it goes to their families, their friends, the people they associate with, and that's how community begins. And you have to understand the smallest part of community, the smallest spark that starts the hope, the smallest bit of it really starts with goodness. You can't start nowhere else. Community has to start not with evil. Evil does not work. And we will talk and discuss community in Justice League. We'll also talk and discuss community on the media scale, on the individual scale, on the local social scale. We're going to look at all of these things as we go through these videos, because I don't believe in watching entertainment. I don't believe in empty entertainment. I've said this to you guys multiple times. Why the DCEU appeals to me so much is because the entertainment that I see on the screen appeals to and suggests certain logistics and certain ways to go about doing things. The way how we view our perspective on people and the world will change as a result of us looking at certain films and stuff that reflect ourselves, but not only that, but propose certain ways of approaching things and understanding the difficulties that come by. By the way, the scripture again says, I'm afflicted very much, meaning that the way, even though he has seen the path, even though he has the light on his feet and what to execute, it's not easy to do it still, because he's still being afflicted while he is executing. And therefore he comes back and he says, quicken me, O Lord, according to your word. And for anybody who's a Christian, that includes myself. I'm going to say Christian for now. You guys who are not Christians, don't worry about it. This is specifically for Christians right now, but it doesn't mean it excludes you, because you may be a Christian. You just never know. Labels don't really mean everything in this world. But what I'm saying to you anyway, for those who profess to be followers of Jesus Christ, Christians, that's why it's called Christian, right? You're going to find that you do sometimes things contrary to that. And you're going to find yourself, you being your worst enemy. Sometimes also you may find that as you start, you was doing a whole set of non-useful things. It wasn't helping no community, wasn't helping nobody. As soon as you decided to put your mind to becoming effective in community, to actually making an impact in the name of Jesus Christ, with Jesus' power, you will realize that there suddenly becomes afflictions and obstacles in your pathway, and it's not easy to do. All of a sudden, stuff that was easy to do, all of a sudden it got very difficult, right? And all I'm saying is, and this is a universal concept, by the way, most people will know this, but you will find that even so, ladies and gentlemen, even so, you just need to delve even more into goodness, into those good places. Say whatsoever things are right, whatsoever things are lovely. So you just delve more into that good old place, that good place. Some people like to say, go to that happy place. I wouldn't call it a happy place, but it is a happy place. Go to that place where there's values and virtues, and then bring it out of you. It just means the more adversity, the more good you can bring out of yourself, because it's now a greater opportunity to showcase these values and see the stark contrast between that adversity and the evil that is trying to come over you and the good that is coming out of you. All right. Somebody might say, you preaching, brother. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, everybody can identify what I just said. Even though I'm speaking directly to Christians, don't get it twisted. I'm sure you can look at that and say, but dude, that applies to me too. That applies to everybody, and it's just an understanding. But you can't, it has to be that you have meditated on good things. That's why they talk about, in the scripture, it says rooted and grounded. And I want to spend a little time on this. You will notice my videos, I'm not trying to be popular. I'm spending time on things I believe count. Another thing, I'm never proud of this. A lot of Christian people say, I'm a sinner saved by grace. Okay. And they seem to be proud to say that. I'm not proud to say I'm a sinner. I'm going to tell y'all that right now. I'm not proud of any single sin. I ain't proud of sin. Sin is shameful to me. So my point is, I'm not proud of sin. I don't dwell on thinking about sin. You know what I'm saying? I don't focus my attention on it, but don't get it twisted. I ain't happy to be saying I'm a sinner. I'm not happy to say that. I prefer to say I'm a saint. But nonetheless, the point is, we say that not because we're proud to say it, because a lot of people say, well, I'll make mistakes, man. I'm a sinner. No. I don't play that. I don't play that. You know what I'm saying? It's not about being a sinner. Oh, and you make the sin as if that's something that's normal. It's not normal. But what I would say is it keeps you in a position of humility, lest you think you can save yourself, so that you can look at things bigger than yourself. See, when you can get the big picture, then you don't focus on yourself as if you of yourself can maintain anything in this world. You can't save your life for crap. And I mean that literally. Anybody here who can live forever, congratulations to you. You are definitely God. We should bow to you. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody here can save themselves. Everybody here gonna die, right? Unless God intervene, right? Everybody here is going to die. So none of y'all can say y'all can save yourself. Everybody here is going to, I'm saying, if I'm saying something wrong, correct me right now. Correct me right now. Am I saying something that's true that everybody agrees with? So that's where the humility comes in. Now, whether you believe it's because of sin or not that you die, I believe that because I'm a Christian, but nonetheless, if you don't even if you don't believe that, you can't save yourself from death. None of y'all. All of y'all gonna die. Now, once you get that into your psyche, then now you can be humble enough to move forward. Do you know why we all die? Because our systems break down. In other words, if it was a perfect system, a flawless system, it wouldn't break down. If it was a perfect machine, it would go on forever. Do you know what sin is? Let me break it down to y'all. The word sin in the Greek means missing, misses, shortcomings. That's what the word sin in Greek means. Incompleteness. Now, a perfect working machine has no flaws, so it won't break down. A perfect working machine has no misses, no shortcomings, no inconsistencies. So when I say this world has sin in it, I'm basically saying this world has shortcomings, incompleteness, inconsistencies. See, I'm going to break it down in a language everybody can understand. That's what sin is. Now, some people will say, but there's no such thing as perfection in this world. Okay, let's think about that for a second. Is that true? I'm going to hit you with something that's perfect. Love. Peace. The beauty. The beauty. I'm going to hit you with some things that are consistent and they last forever. But they're abstract things. They're qualities. Now, you could say, well, love doesn't exist. Fine. You can say that. But I'm going to tell you this. It depends on what your definition of love is. Because I think love exists all the time. And my point being this. You want to hold on to perfection. You want to hold on to something that has no shortcomings. You want to hold on to something that will last forever. Hold on to these things. You want to have a legacy. Hold on to these things. That's what I got to say to you guys before I get into what I want to talk about. And that's what I believe at the crux of it, these DCEU movies have been showing us in our humanity. Some people say, well, Anson, are you trying to be a humanist? I said, well, in a manner of speaking, I am a humanist. Some people will have a problem with that. Religious folk. Some people, I said. Because, see, I can be all things to all men because I know who strengthens me. What I'm saying to y'all, in other words, is when you say, when the scripture, David wrote that scripture, man, when he wrote that scripture, or he got it written for him or whatever, because he was a king. When he had that scripture right now, that word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It wasn't no small talk. It wasn't no small talk. He was talking about love, peace, beauty, goodness, faith, hope. These ideals that mankind strives towards every single day. That's why you got in your national anthem inspirational stuff, talking about all men created equal. It's an ideal we strive towards. Equality. All this stuff about equality, male and female equality. We even hear gay rights equality, equality when it comes to marriage and stuff. Where that come from? It's scriptural. I don't agree with gay rights equality in terms of marriage. I don't agree with it in terms of marriage. If you understand what I'm saying, that's another thing of another day. But hey, it is what it is. My point is these ideals about treating people fairly and equity. These things are ideals. They're qualities. Fairness. God shines his light on the just and the unjust. He gonna still shine his light. He gonna shine the sun. Sun come up on good and bad. That's fairness, equity. Everybody gets a fair shot. Everybody gets a fair chance. Anyway, so what I try to share with you guys is priceless. Money can't buy this shit, man. Money can't buy it. Sorry about the word shit there. I should really correct myself. Money can't buy that stuff. Okay? It can't buy it. Okay? These things are eternal, man. They'll be around after our physical bodies are gone. All right, let's get into it. So in front of you, you have here a connection between Man of Steel and BVS that I didn't even see. I hadn't noticed. And I overlooked this character here. His name is Glenn Woodburn. And in Man of Steel, Glenn Woodburn is involved in this political discussion on Superman. At first, it doesn't start off as a political discussion. It's concealed. This alien, a lot of these movies, Men in Black and Alien Invasion and V. I don't know if you guys watched that miniseries V. It was original miniseries, and then and so many other Hollywood movies, from First Encounter to other things, have been discussing the possibilities of extraterrestrials. Maybe Steven Spielberg's E.T. extraterrestrials on Earth. And people have always had the sense that the American government has been concealing information about extraterrestrials being present on Earth. I, as a Christian brother, don't believe there's any extraterrestrials on Earth. I do believe there are other beings on Earth. But that's my personal or persuasion and opinion. And until evidence is pointed otherwise, I will not believe otherwise. And that's what makes it very interesting, because what makes it interesting is that such a scenario actually arose in Man of Steel. And the way how this extraterrestrial or alien was discovered was by a member of the media, of the press, of the Associated Press in Louis Lane. I love how they approached Man of Steel, of course, very political. Because Louis Lane, it was a brother who was writing his piece on Man of Steel, and why it was so brilliant. And another brother who wrote, the same brother, I think, who wrote another piece on the DCEU. And he was pointing out that there were many different factors involved in this sci-fi drama thriller story of Man of Steel. And one of the elements was the political element. And it was introduced via Louis Lane. Louis Lane kept on writing political pieces on the military and on various things. And she got a Pulitzer Prize for her analysis and her journalism. And as a great journalist that she was, she seems to always find that story. She's able to find the pulse on things. And so it was not surprising that Louis Lane ends up, she's a big risk taker. She goes where the story is. She ends up finding out about this information in Canada that the military has found out about this artifact that's under ice that the military is very interested in, the American military. And apparently she's able to get a pellicard through Canada to get her access to there. The military did not want her to get this access, but she ends up getting the access anyway. And so it was very political what's going on. And in the end, she has a first encounter with this extraterrestrial, okay, which looks like her and everything, but then he does some things that just are not normal, okay? And she's experienced it firsthand. This extraterrestrial saved her life, and she found herself in an extraterrestrial sort of container, vehicle, whatever it is. And the extraterrestrial saves her life and then leaves her, okay? When she tries to publish this story through her media outlet, her boss refuses to do so, under the grounds that he believes that this information would horrify the public. And he knows that Lois Lane is an excellent journalist, but that would just simply terrify the public, knowing that they've been lied to for so many years about extraterrestrials. And that is reflective of what the public thinks. The public thinks they've seen sightings. People have alleged they've seen sightings of UFOs and stuff, unidentified flying objects. I have myself seen unidentified flying objects, but I know it's military based. I used to see it over California skies, the clear California skies. But my point anyway is this, that people have seen these things. They've even tried to account for certain markings on the earth. And a lot of people believe there are extraterrestrial presence, and the governments of the world are covering that up. And so this story is saying, yes, that is true. So they use that context to show you that it is true in the Superman story, which I love. Now I'm giving you guys all this context and stuff. Let me just go to the chat section, see what you guys are saying in the chat section before I come back to what I'm saying. All right. So let me just move out there. Do like this. All right. You guys can see my screen and everything. Oh, I don't have the chat section up. I see I have 2 viewers. If you're in the chat section right now, you can shout out to me. Give me a shout out, man. All right. Let me see what's going on over here. Okay, so I can turn that on. Anybody wants to join the Hangout as well, you are free to join the Hangout. This here. All right, so you guys can see the chat section. This is what I actually see when the screen is not on. Okay, anyway, let me get to the bottom line of this particular meme here. So anyway, so is this a reflective of what would happen in our world? And that's what I like about it. You know, the DCEU takes the characters and brings them to our world. It was just brilliant what Zack Snyder was doing. So it's a world that you're kind of familiar with. You know, you saw CNN on there. You saw some real places from our world there and so on. Anyway, so Lois Lane, she's not able to publish this. So she goes to this internet guy who puts out all kinds of, you know, unverifiable information. And he seems to put out information on all kinds of things. He's kind of like those tabloid kind of stuff, unconfirmed stuff, which is typical of the internet. And now today, these days, we hear about fake news a lot. There's a lot of talk about fake news because people, you know, they troll by putting out articles now, which they know the headlines are not true, but they do use it to attract attention to get clicks. It's called clickbait, right? And Glenn Woodburn, he would do all these kind of outrageous stuff on the internet, kind of clickbait kind of stuff that's unverifiable. And Lois Lane actually despises Glenn Woodburn's site, and she calls it, Glenn Woodburn, she wrote an article on Piece of Him, and Glenn Woodburn actually quoted her. But nonetheless, the important is he's not, you know, he's not one of those guys that the media would want to interview and stuff. He's, you know, he's questionable in his sources and etc. But Lois Lane goes to him because she can't publish the thing via her publishing company and spills all the beans to him. And he just spills everything that she did in her article and everything onto the internet. And the sponsors of the paper that she works for, they want her boss to fire her for it because they feel like, because of course her name is attached to it, which is stupid. She should have done it as an anonymous source, but she didn't. And Woodburn took her name, shotgun it all over the place. And so because of that now, the people who Perry White's accountable to, I'm believing one of the sponsors is Lex Luthor, wanted her fired. Now, what's interesting about this is General Zod comes to Earth, another alien, another extraterrestrial, outs Superman, calls him Kal-El, okay? And that, you know, he says, you know, he'll look like you, but he's not one of you. He's one of our citizens. Bring him back into our custody. And so Glenn Woodburn now, a guy with questionable sources, fake news dude, Mr. Clickbait, Mr. Troll, all of a sudden he becomes prominent and he's being interviewed on the news because he put out an article by Lois Lane claiming that this extraterrestrial is out there. And he's being interviewed on the news, as you can see. And this is where he rose to public prominence and actually got credibility. This dude in BVS. And I found this very interesting, that one day you're seen as a hack and you're seen as a liar and you're seen as a scum of the earth. And the next day you're seen in the public and you're prominent in the public, and the public are coming to you for advice. And I found this interesting, and it foreshadowed something that happened in America in terms of their politics. And I find that very interesting. I find it symptomatic of that. So in Man of Steel, here we see a shot of Woodburn. He's being interviewed by Metropolis News, Channel 8. Okay, it's live and it's breaking. And Woodburn, after he has said everything he had to say about what he thinks about Superman, he says, if he, Kal-El, truly means us no harm, then he will turn himself into his people and face the consequences. And if he won't do that, then maybe we should. And then he goes on to say, the Daily Planet's Lois Lane knows who this guy is. And he outs Lois Lane, okay? So General Zod outed Kal-El, okay, who they're both fellow Kryptonians. And then a member of the press who is, he's a sketchy kind of sleazeball member of the press, Glenn Woodburn, he outs Lois Lane. He's himself a blogger. He's a blogger, an internet blogger. And he turns out and he outs Lois Lane, which is his fellow journalist. So I find this so interesting that I had to point it out. Both guys, both Glenn Woodburn and the General Zod, have questionable moral characters. And so it's just interesting. General Zod outs Superman, Glenn Woodburn outs Lois Lane. Now, what can we learn about this for our society? Some people, they will step on the heads of other people because they have questionable morale. They will put down other people. They will expose other people to get their ends and means. You think in Krypton of Darren Vex. He's a perfect example of that. When you think of Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor, right? Now you see Glenn Woodburn and also General Zod. They are very similar in that question. And one of the things you have to notice, and even if you think about, if we go across to the MCU for a minute, we think of Infinity War with Thanos. He's also a similar kind of personality. These guys have questionable moral bearing. And I won't call any names in the United States political system, but I will say a very given individual had to put down and step on other people and is continuously trying to do that in order for him to rise to public prominence. That's all I will say about that. Let's move on. So he gets public prominence and he actually pops up in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, again discussing the subject of Superman. And he has this to say, and it's somewhat philosophical. And again, we're looking at Metropolis Channel 8 News. It's now HD. And they actually clarify who he was. The first time he was shown, they didn't clarify who he was. But notice, on the subject of Superman being a false god, again, Glenn Woodburn shows us, and he kind of reflects what the world thinks, at least certain people in the world think about Superman. And again, he's somewhat adverse to Superman. First, he was skeptical of him in Man of Steel, you know, and then now you see that his skepticism has now gotten sort of even darker than it was. And he's actually there sitting down speaking on the topic of Superman being a false god, as you can see clearly here, false god. And he's saying human beings have a terrible track record of following people down paths that can lead to huge human atrocities. And it's very interesting that, again, whenever he takes the public stage, he seems to out people. And so in this case, again, he's seeming to out Superman. He's saying that Superman, you know, if you follow Superman, it'll only lead to ruin and destruction. And it's just funny how his popularist view, and again, he's got a popularist view, which makes sense. You know, the first one is if he means us no harm, he'll turn himself into his people and face the consequences, which makes sense. Not us, right? If he won't do that, maybe we should. That makes sense. Of course, he's very skeptical about Superman. He doesn't really know much about Superman, okay? Even though the article that's published with Lois Lane says that he saved Lois Lane, that should have kind of said, well, why is this guy saving this journalist? But nonetheless, here now, he's again going down, but even a darker path. Now he's suggesting a case that Superman is a false god. And secondly, in the debate that's going on, he's saying that we tend to follow people down paths that lead to human atrocities, saying that Superman, somehow we will go down the path with Superman to human atrocities happening against humanity. Okay. And so that's the discussion and dispute that's going on. And that's his input into the dispute. And this time people are listening to him because he is proven to be credible with his information he first had when he just outed that Lois Lane was the person. Lois Lane's article was correct, right? And then he outs Lois Lane. Now, what I want to say about this is in building community, you're going to meet people like this, all right? There's always a good side to them somewhere. And so Lois Lane was able to utilize the good in Glenn Woodburn by a backdoor means, but there is always a kickback where he could out you, okay? Because these guys have questionable morality. So you find even in the American public political system that there's good and bad to those people. And even if you put them in prominence, even if you put these people in prominence, I would suggest that you understand they don't have a morality that's grounded. Their morality is going to shift where it benefits them, where they think it will benefit mankind. Why that's important is because, case in point, we are in a political system and a political environment where some people are like that. And some people seem to be above the law and they're willing to use whatever to survive. You also find that in this political environment, we've seen other people who have been justly and rightly so held accountable for what they're doing. Other people, because other people are making excuses for them and they have a demographic behind them, they are not being held accountable for what they do. I want you to understand that in a community and in communities, all you have to do, if the people who you think are in prominence are not being held accountable, what do? How do people hold Glenn Woodburn's words accountable? Well, there are two ways. They had a public debate discussion. And this was a public debate in BVS where different people were actually speaking on and debating the controversial nature of Superman. The second arena that needs to be there is one of the grassroots level, where the grassroots people in being involved in the political process not only do it in terms of voting and elections, but now what you start to do on the grassroots level is you start to take away the power from such people. Those people want to wield power in certain ways and assume that the people at the grassroots level are powerless to do anything to them because they feel that they can wield power at the top, thinking that they have laws behind them. You at the grassroots level, you interpret what the laws are, but you must not be manipulated by media or other sources. You must be in a localized level. And I'm seeing it now on the ground a little bit more, even with people who are supposedly of allegiance to the party, the political parties of these people. They're beginning to understand that they need to ground themselves in principle. And it's not about which party or what party, but that there must be sensible, logical conclusions and decisions done at the ground level. We're talking village level. We're talking county level. We're talking state level. We're talking borough level. And then we are talking then a collection of states level, and then we're talking about the entire community. If it's the United States of America, whether it's the world, whatever, your country, wherever it is. In other words, systematically, you guys have to take back the control and the power of things, and you understand that the future of this situation is in the hands of your children, and you know that they must have the right example, which means you have to take it into your hands on the localized level. That's where your empowerment truly comes from. That's the path that burns the light. That's how the game is changed. Now, we saw on the ground level, Black Lives Matter is still pulsing, and it's pulsing very strongly throughout America. There's not necessarily a lot of Black Lives Matter movements or protests or walks anymore, but we see it strong. We've seen it reflected in the theater. We've seen it reflected now in people in society calling out people for race. But you have to understand, Black Lives Matter must rise beyond just Black lives, because we also have issues of the poor and impoverished also being persecuted. And we also have other minorities who are being persecuted in this country. We've seen in the United States of America, not this country, because my country is Trinidad. But my point is, you have to take back the power into your own hands. I like when a certain county held their sheriffs accountable for what they were doing to minorities. I loved it. They held that guy accountable. And it wasn't even Black people that did that. It was white people. That's what you have to do. You have to take a stand in your borough, in your county, in your local place, especially with people you know who should know better. If you know these people and you already have a relationship with them, then you can tell them the hard things. Say, hey, Joe, I know you're a cop and you're sheriff, but you can't be doing that now. When we start to hold each other, especially if you know the people, start to hold them accountable. Start to hold people accountable. That's great. Because true friends tell each other the hard stuff. And they open their mouth and they say what they got to say. And if you're going to kill me for it, fine, I'm going down with this. But it's wrong. And that's what needs to be done in the family level. Now, again, people make jokes sometimes. You got to know when somebody's serious and when they're not serious. And I think sometimes in this politically correct world, sometimes people get a little too touchy about things. So if somebody's making a joke about something and it's actually true, it's not a lie, it's actually true. And it's not just public sentiment, but it's actually true. You should be able to understand the context in which that person is talking. All right. Now, we're glad that everybody's opening up their mouth and being honest and coming to the table. So people who were racist, they're coming openly out now, and they're being racist now, so we can flush out racism, so we can actually have a dialogue. Besides racism, we also see xenophobia. Besides xenophobia, we also see a class discrimination. We see people of different classes. Again, there's true elitism, and then there is what people think is elitism, but it's not. My point being that when this public discussion starts to come to the table, and thank God in a way that Donald Trump is president of the United States, because now it motivates people to even speak out more on these things, because there's an urgency to solve these problems. As people talk out, they shouldn't only talk out. And that's why my videos are about chat and discussions, by the way, guys. So you can join the discussion and talk about these things. When people start to come out and speak on these issues, we start to have some kind of dialogue. And as the casualties mount in terms of atrocities, and people start to shine the light on atrocities, profiling, and all these things that have been happening so long in the United States of America, and not only profiling, but also classism that's happened in the United States of America. As this starts to, and we all realize we're all in this, and not only the United States of America, but Europe. It happens in Europe. There's racism in Europe. I know. And even the last thing where they started to kick back Caribbean immigrants from England, that's wrong. You know, it's wrong on so many different levels. Yes, there's some people with illegal status up in your country. Okay, you want to move them out of your country, fine. Get them back to their country, fine. But I'm saying to you, there's certain things that are wrong. When you know, certain people were striving to get legal status, or they're on the verge of getting legal status, and you kick them out of the country. You know that's wicked. But anyway, nonetheless, we're talking about this issue because what I find is that people want to hold on. The whole bottom line with racism is this: people want to hold on to the profitability of being a certain class, of being a certain race. Take, for instance, marriage. We talk about gay marriage and equal opportunity marriage. The whole reason the gays want to get married is because they want the equal opportunities that married people have. All right. Now, this is a little bit different because this is based on, I think, ethics. So that's the problem. But then again, people will say, well, slavery was based on ethics. They said in the Bible that the slave should be a slave. They said that, with women, it was ethics, that women should have been, they don't do nothing in society. I hear you, except the Bible didn't say that. Now, but I understand that, man, I understand that equal opportunity and equality is important. But here's the problem I have. I have a problem when, societally speaking, we have an issue with, we want to have gay rights, but yet we still want to push a racist agenda. Why would you want to have gay rights and push a racist agenda? Or why would you want to have equal opportunity for women and men and push a racist agenda? In other words, what I'm saying to people is the consistency of not only ethnicity, not only sexual, so people talk about sexual preference and then they talk about sexuality and gender, which is separate things. But when you look at all of these factors, you have to ask yourself, the people wanting to have franchise, as we say, or they don't want to be disenfranchised, they want to have franchise, they want to have the equal opportunities other people have. It's only about equal opportunity. The equal opportunities other people have. You ask yourself, in classism, or even in the people who still racist, what do these people view these other people as? The racist people feel that they are superior in some way, shape, or form to the other minorities. With those people against feminism or against equal opportunity for men and women, they argue that these people, they are of a different gender, so that makes them inferior to them for some reason. They're the weaker gender. Now, when we look at gay rights in terms of I don't even know why it's called gay rights, to be honest with you. They're people, but anyway, when you look at the gay rights issue, I find it a little bit different. It's about the actions of people and their behavior. It's not just judgment on who they are. I don't see a gay person as any lesser than me. Okay, I don't even know why I call them gay, because I mean, what they do in their private space is their business. But I don't see them as different to me. Okay, I've been called gay. I've been oppressed, and people say because I wouldn't involve myself in certain activities that people in the Caribbean thought would, that shows that you're hetero. Because I didn't involve myself in that, they thought I was gay. And bottom line is this: I don't believe in gay bashing. I don't believe in gay hate. But when you have an activity where you, in other words, you're conducting a practice. Your practice is you want to bugger someone. Okay, you want to bugger someone, and gays are not the only people who do that. So I can understand that case. They're like, hey, you look like heterosexuals who get married. They get married and they're buggering each other, right? I hear you. It don't make it right. But my point being, when you bugger someone, man, to me, that has always been something that's criminal. You know what I'm saying? And that's the difference. I believe that it's more of an action, even though, again, I have nothing against a transsexual person, a person who was born physically male or female and then changed their gender. I feel that's absolutely in order. Again, I don't think that's wrong. If you were born female, but you trapped in a male's body and you changed your gender, that's cool. I just wish that it could get cheaper so more people could do that. But it gets really out there when you start to tell me about these weird things, these weird practices, behaviors. You understand what I'm saying? That's the difference, I think, when I'm talking about gay. I don't hate gay people. I don't hate gay people at all. I don't understand what it is to be gay. So I have to see their point of view. You understand what I'm saying? And I'll listen to people. So I'm not going to even try and pretend like I understand, because I don't. But at the same time, I can't agree with the practice, and I can't validate that. And that's the difference. When I'm born black, I'm born black. And they got stereotypes about me. Right? There are stereotypes about gay people. Stereotypes which I, myself, as a straight person, had suffered myself growing up. And I wasn't gay. And the point being that it's interesting. I'm not trying to stereotype anybody. I don't even care if you're gay or not. You know, so when I speak out of my disagreement is basically on logic, it's on reasoning, and it's on the actions of people. Okay. I know in the feminist movement as well. So that's why I'm careful how I use that word. In the feminist movement, there are certain people who are LGBT. They're LGBT. And in the movement, the black movement, we've also had LGBT along there. I get it. So that's why everybody lumps them all together. But I just don't agree with if you gay, you gay. I mean, what can I do about that? And there's nothing I can do about that. And, you know, but I don't believe in validating gayness by having legalized marriage. Just as how I do not validate legalizing marijuana. I don't validate that. But however, I will say that I believe that it can be used medicinally, and therefore under those grounds is good. I don't know about decriminalizing it, because we haven't decriminalized cocaine and heroin and morphine, but we use morphine, we use cocaine in dentistry. It's medicinal. You can prescribe it. And I think you should be able to prescribe marijuana, not to smoke, but particularly to use the oils and the leaves, and you can, you know, use the herb. You boil the leaves and stuff and drink it, right? Smoking it is risky because, again, you're putting particulates in your lung, you're irritating the lining, you can get lung cancer from that. Besides that, there's certain chemicals that are formed that irreversibly bind with your red blood cells, causing you to get less oxygen uptake to the rest of your body as time goes along. So I don't always agree with everything that people say about marijuana, because I know there are downsides to it as well. But it's not as addictive as other drugs. It's actually not as addictive as alcohol or cigarettes. It's very interesting. But nonetheless, that don't make it right. I'm not going to say, oh, man, take marijuana and smoke the thing. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. You're smoking something. That means particulates going to go up in your lungs. I don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree with people smoking tobacco. Now, if you chew tobacco, that's different. Chewing tobacco is another thing that, again, I ain't putting no smoke up my lungs. You crazy? All right. So again, you get what I'm saying. I try to come from a logical point of view, come from a logical perspective. Alcohol is something that you can use. Most people use it recreationally. I would say this: alcohol is a thing that you need. Your body needs a certain amount of alcohol. But why use empty carbs? Why use empty alcohol? I'm just asking people. Why are you uptaking it so rapidly into your body in terms of beers? People have this as a pastime and it's like fun, but really, what are you doing to yourself? Dehydrating yourself. What are you going to hydrate back? I mean, I just think from a logical, scientific perspective. You know, I don't drink alcohol as a rule. I'd use sometimes cake with alcohol in it. I've used some beverages with some alcohol in them. You know, I like wine every now and then. It's good for you, and good for digestion and good for your body. But at the end of the day, you know, to tell me I need scotch or heavy rum or, you know, beers. Why? Why? My body gets enough alcohol as it is. Why do I need all that? I'm just saying. But, you know, the industries have criminalized that. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent here, but my point anyway is still very simple. And it is that there are social inequities and we can do something about them on a smaller level, on a community level. And let me see if my feed's still going, because I've been talking a lot. Shout out to you guys, man. I hope you guys are seeing this. I don't know what you're seeing, because I've been talking. Okay, yeah, we got screen share. Okay, good, cool. Let me go back to you guys, and everybody gonna actually see this on the screen now. So Video Game Quest says, this is the ultimate message that haters of the DCEU films ignore. They're movies about how we all need to stand up. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Video Game Vision Quest. It's empowerment. It's all about, Zack Snyder's always been about empowerment, you know, so that for me, you know, that's what I like about him. And I like his Christocentric messages as well, but he puts it in a format in which everybody can agree on it and see it for what it is. And that's what I appreciate about the guy, you know. So my point again, how do you address these issues? How do you address someone who comes to prominence, who has questionable morality? You address them on the ground level, on the grassroots level, and you do not address them partisanly. You address them based on truth and facts, and you then implement the truths and facts so people can see the difference between the lies and misinformation that these people are giving, because you need to have a mentor, a role model to the younger kids. And the younger kids are going to be watching these so-called prominent people, and they're going to actually believe them, right? In Batman. So that's why we need to always be in a social dialogue. There needs to be social dialogue so that people are hearing all points of view, not just one loudmouth point of view that some people are blindly following. And then the other thing is, we have to connect in communities at the ground-based level. And we got to know each other. And that's why the Black Lives Matter movement moved forward, because of that. We have to look at inequity, social inequity. That needs to be moved forward, whether it's gender-based or if it's class-based. We have to look at these things, and we have to support each other. We look out for each other. You know, the small towns, they kind of help each other. They kind of like the brother's keeper. The city folk need to merge with the country folk. That's another way of putting it. Because the country folk, the one thing country folk have is hospitality, and they also have a sort of stronger moral base, I think, ethic base. Now, sometimes the country folk, they will sacrifice their morality for people who seem to be listening to them and addressing them. And they will show love in spite of that person's weaknesses. And I'm just saying to you guys, some of the city folk out there and some of the people who have been exposed to the world and travel all over the place and stuff, you guys can learn from the country folk, as well as the country folk can learn from the city folk, so we can actually put something together that's better. But the thing about it is, we can't stay isolated from each other. We cannot do that, because when we do that, that's what hurts the situation. And then the spin weavers can spin this one against that one. That's what they do. They divide and conquer a lot, like Lex Luthor. So you and I, we got a lot in common. Take, for instance, the MCU fans. They got a lot in common with the DCEU fans. And the MCU and the DCU, they have similar topics that they cover. And so we can find a way to bring fusion between them. I love how Black Panther built off of Justice League, built off of Wonder Woman, built off of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I loved it. Addressing the issues and the questions. It was the same kind of film, you know, and this is the kind of thing we need. We need these kinds of films out there, which will help us. Now, in terms of, as I said before, it's the grassroots level, it's your friends level, it's your localized level, it's your family level. You start standing up in there. You start empowering yourself and other people there. The best people to talk to people about their behaviors is family. Family first, or your friends. Check you. But if your friends are just yes men and they're only saying yes around you, then it's a problem. All right. So that's how we deal with the Glenn Woodburn. So Glenn Woodburn, he rose to prominence, but thankfully he was kind of put into check, because, you know, while he's pushing this false god rhetoric, which some people in the world believed about Superman, there were others who were trying to give a more balanced view of Superman in the dialogue. So Superman, while he was a figure of controversy, he was they were sort of balancing and interplaying balancing and interplaying other ideas and thoughts about it. All right. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is somewhat deep, is that all three DCU movies had an attempt at a hostile overthrow witnessed by a major protagonist. Let me zoom in a little bit more on this. All right, you guys can see this, right? Make it as big as possible. Well, that's really big. Nice. All right, so if you look in the beginning of Man of Steel, right? When we look, there's a revolt happening on Krypton, large-scale revolt. And you see Jor-El there witnessing this war that's going down on Krypton. And General Zod was responsible for that revolt. He attempted a hostile takeover of Krypton in Man of Steel. And guess what? In BVS, we had something on a little smaller scale, but it's pretty much going to affect the world anyway. In BVS, we also had an overthrow that was being witnessed by Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne was witnessing that overthrow. All right. Again, this overthrow involved General Zod, and this time he was trying to destroy the world to bring forth Krypton, terraform the world, and bring out a Krypton from it. So General Zod took his philosophy of overthrowing things, and he went in the beginning of BVS. Now, even though this was seen at the end of Man of Steel, in the beginning of BVS, Dawn of Justice, DOJ, we saw this, and Bruce Wayne was the witness of that. So whereas Jor-El witnessed an overthrow on Krypton, Bruce Wayne witnessed an overthrow of the Earth by General Zod. Okay, and you can see it there, all the havoc and carnage being caused. Now, in Justice League, at the beginning of Justice League as well, in the beginning of Justice League, we had another overthrow, but it was a much smaller scale. This time, it was an institution of a law that was being overthrown. And this institution of law that's interesting. Let me see something here. Hold on a second, people. Oh, okay. Right. So it was an institution of law, which was in Justice League. Okay. Now, this is just saying at the beginning of each movie. All right. So if you look at the beginning of Man of Steel, there was an overthrow of Krypton at the beginning. It wasn't at the very beginning. At the very beginning of Man of Steel, we saw the birth of Kal-El, and then Jor-El's pitching his thing, and then we see the overthrow happening. Also, it wasn't at the beginning of Batman v Superman. We saw first the origin of Batman, and then we saw the Metropolis incident, right? And then similar thing to those two movies. At the very beginning, we see Superman first, and then we see Batman, and it kind of introduces us to the fact that Superman is dead. And we have this nice little sort of collage of scenes accompanied by music. And then we get into the story where we see this incident, this overthrow of a hostile overthrow, a terrorist attack on Old Bailey. All right. Now, the interesting thing, though, about all three is that Wonder Woman, of course, she was the one that witnessed this happening. Of all three witnesses, however, the only one who was able to stop the overthrow, the only one, was Wonder Woman. Batman was powerless to stop the overthrow. It was Superman who stopped it. On Krypton, Jor-El was powerless to stop the overthrow, and he was trying to do something else when he realized what was going down. However, General Zod, the overthrow was quelled by the armies of Krypton, and General Zod was brought to trial. In fact, Jor-El was killed. He was one that lost his life in the process of that happening. So I found this very interesting because when you look at all three characters that we just mentioned, they were powerless to implement what they really wanted to do. And one was a Kryptonian, but he was on Krypton. So he wasn't a god there. He was just a normal, he was like a man. So this was a Kryptonian having to watch at a Kryptonian takeover by another Kryptonian. Basically, they're on par with each other. Now, the next one is interesting. The next one has to do with a human, a man, and he's powerless to see a god because it's a godlike being, a very powerful being, annihilating Metropolis, eventually taking the lives of people he worked for. Now, he thought it was Superman, but it was really General Zod that was doing that. And Superman was the other god trying to quell him and offset him. But the point is that it was a man now viewing a god. There was a difference in power levels, right? Difference in power levels. And now here in Justice League, when this incident happens, it's actually a god. And we see the perspective of the god, unlike these two, where first this one is a man looking up at a god, you know, the above and below theme. And here this is a person on the same level with his competition looking across at it. So and notice he's elevated. So he's a Kryptonian. Kryptonians are elevated above humans. So he's on this elevated height and he's looking across at his adversity. So the adversity, he's looking across at it. It's just at his eye level. And I thought that was very interesting how Zack Snyder, again, so much detail in Zack Snyder's movies. So here you see him, you get the view of someone on the same level with another person, Kryptonian to Kryptonian. But yet it's elevated to show that they are above human beings. Now here, when we see it in BVS, we see the perspective on the level of a human. And even if you go and watch the fight in Man of Steel with Superman and Zod, they're always on the same level. So in Man of Steel, Superman and Zod, they're on the same level, showing that they're both godlike compared to humans in power, and they're on the same level. Here, we now, BVS, see another perspective. We see it from a humanity's perspective. And Bruce is looking up, showing again, above and below, showing that the gods are above him. Common GODS, okay? Now, when we go and look at Justice League, it's really interesting because now the tables have turned. Now we are seeing the perspective from a god's perspective. And so the god is looking down from Lady Liberty, okay? Looking down from Lady Liberty, down at the action below. So here she is above and she's looking below. And because she is a god and because she uses her abilities and strengths to bring about justice and order and defend the powerless, she is able to stop the overthrow. Now, what does this mean? And how does that play into us and our communities? Okay, let me see if anybody else. There's 4 people watching. Remember, you can always leave your comments in the chat section. Leave your comments in the chat section. You know, I try to give interesting videos and stuff. Leave your comments in the chat section. I'm more than happy to hear your input on this. We're discussing with respect to communities, building communities, how you can better build your community. And one of the best ways to build your community, ladies and gentlemen, is by working first with your families, getting to know other people in your neighborhood, speaking with different people, talking with different people, having conversations with different people. It's a risk, but it's worth taking, okay? So going on, people in your workplace even, getting to know them a little bit better. That's more of risky. So let's just start off with our families. So as I was saying, you find that there constantly is an evolution of stuff here going on. We start off with people on the same level. They're aliens, they're Kryptonians, okay? Then we see people where one person seems to be more powerful than the other, giving you different perspectives and how people deal with that. And then we see people on different levels. We see one that's much more powerful than the others and can effect change. What is this speaking about? There's 3 different people in society. There are 3 different people in society, and they're different in the sense of, and this is why community is important. And in Justice League, we will talk more about this in a second, and then build up to the next thing I'm going to talk about. But there are 3 different people in society based on their ability to influence. We have people who are seen as gods. All right? They're seen as gods in our community because they have greater responsibilities and they have more resources to be able to effect things in your community. They may be the business community, for instance. They may be the legislative community. They have the resources and wherewithal to effect massive change. Then we have, and amongst them, they see each other on the same level. So when we're talking about the war in Krypton, General Zod and Jor-El at a certain point in time were good friends, and they argued and debated with each other. We see this in our politics. We see this in the Senate. We see this in Congress. We see this in our local, statewide Congresses and Senates. And we see this also in terms of our law enforcement, who is, the heads of the law enforcement. We see this in the heads of law. We see this in the heads, the judges, the magistrates, etc. These people are considered gods among men. But there's another level. There are the people who are, as we say, humans. They would be the people like you and me who are not in those capacities. They're not in the high power, in the high places of power. Say, for instance, I'm talking about leaders, particularly in your communities. We have people who are heads of the medical staff or heads of medical legislature, that kind of stuff. You're going to effect change. Now, what they do with it is a different story. But then you have people at the lower tier, people in the communities themselves. You may be different specialization in doctor, lawyer, whatever. But at the end of the day, you are at a tier below. And then you have the lowest tier, which is like the people who maybe don't do those things. They do the 9 to 5. They're employed by different people. They work in jobs, and they do service or something, and they go home. Okay. And then you have the unemployed, and then you have the homeless, and then you have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, then the bottom tier, where you have a professional, for instance, who's a lawyer or whatever, somebody who's well employed, got well paid, whatever. They're like Batman. Batman, in and of himself, is powerful, and he has been able to manage mankind in his area, his localized area. But when it comes to people with greater influence and impact, Batman has to look up to them. He feels powerless against them. And so Batman would be like you and me, the common people who feel sometimes our rights and our privileges are being taken advantage of by more powerful people. And we call them elitists. We call them this and that. But there are people who are in high positions right in your community. A stone throw away from you. You may be living in a community, I don't care if it's ghetto or whatever. It won't take you but 5 to 10 minutes via taxi or car to get to someone of influence in your community, if you know your community well. And my point being that it's not just all the way up into, Capitol Hill you have to go, or to your state, but there are people, and it's supposed to be approachable. Now, here's the thing. A lot of you have resentment towards these people. And it's the same thing like how Batman felt because these people have so much influence and power. He had resentment towards them because he felt that the authority and power was being abused. All right. However, if you were to look at it from some of these people's perspective who really wish well and use their power and authority. Now, some of those people, those gods, they use their power and authority evilly to benefit themselves, and you have others who really care about other people and want to use it to benefit them. They're like Wonder Woman, and again, they may be on a different level and see things differently because they have a wider perspective on things, which is why above and below. But the point is, they're willing to put their efforts and their lives to use to truly effect change that would actually benefit people. All right. Now, what we have seen many a time is that these people who really want to effect change, like Jor-El, who are, as we say, godlike status, because there are other gods out there, they really don't have the power to really effect that change. So Jor-El was unable to effect that change in Krypton, but he had a contingency plan to sort of allow Krypton to continue on, which was in Kal-El. So that what you find is sometimes you have a certain degree of power and influence. You liaise with other people with great power and influence, but those people, their intentions are not the same as yours. Their intentions may be destructive. It may be just to benefit themselves. They just want to play the politics of the game. And this happens many times as you move up the tier in levels. It gets more and more difficult to get things done. And so what you find is, because everyone wants to fatten themselves and benefit themselves, and there are more and more lies the higher up you go. So to find really genuine, sincere people out there, it's hard. But there are some of those people. And so what happens is that those people, they try, but their success is not as good. I'm going to get to Justice League. Trust me, it's going to work out. Now, when we look at the people below, some of them are genuine people as well, but they sometimes view the people above them as elitists, and they bland everybody as elitists. And you saw Superman mix, you saw Bruce Wayne mix Superman with General Zod. He confused Superman with General Zod, blaming Superman for the destruction of Wayne Enterprises when it was really General Zod that did that. And that's the disconnect sometimes. In community, we have to find out who really are the people who have our best interests at heart. And so Bruce ends up looking to kill Superman, to destroy Superman for that, when he was targeting the wrong person, the person with influence and power who was actually trying to effect positive change. Now, when you look at Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman's interesting because what Wonder Woman shows us is that she's delving with humans as well. Humans who think like Batman did. Humans who are terrorists, okay? Because they're thinking like Batman. They're saying, no, we can't allow the world. So they try to take things into their hands. But Wonder Woman has the power and resources to squash these guys. They're a level below her, okay? And so what we find is that there are other people who want to be gods, and they're moving in a godlike status in society, but their intentions are not very good. And the society would go down. In your community, there's people like that. But thankfully, there are other people who are above them who can right that situation and stop them from doing those things. You must know who those people are in your community as well. And those people would be Wonder Woman. They have the capacity to stop those things from happening. So there are different tiers in your community based on the ability of people, the power people have to influence change. It's not based on class system, how bright you are, how much money you have. That it's good that you're bright. It's good you have a lot of money, but the money is to effect change for the betterment of everyone. So the resources are to effect change. The more powerful you come, the more responsible you must be, and it's to effect change for the betterment of everyone, especially those people being taken advantage of, which is what her policy was. So you have to understand there are different sets of people in every community, local and otherwise, maybe not as powerful as, say, people way up at the top who are lawmakers, but every community has them on a smaller scale. And if you know everybody in your community, you know what they can do, what their pluses are, what their minuses are. And like I said before, even the people with questionable morals have a use in society, because no one's perfect, right? Everyone has a purpose, but we must be able to, if somebody throws something negative into the fray, that there must also be a positive. People must also know the positive side of that thing. In other words, when we have public discussions and we keep the public forum open all the time, entertaining each different point of view, it helps to put things in perspective so that people can see and teach their kids and teach other people the right way of doing things. What I like about Middle America is a place where they really try to build on character. Now, we've seen some of Middle America compromise themselves by electing this president, and some of them regret it and some of them don't. And the point is, partisanship is fine. You want to elect a certain party, but always elect parties or political entities. Politics goes beyond political parties, by the way. Political entities based on policies, based on what they say they're going to do. Don't elect them based on emotion. A lot of people get very emotional about things which really are based on principle. That's why I keep on explaining to people, love is a principle. It involves emotion, but it is directed by principle. And there is something called right and wrong in the world. Now, not always do we meditate on what is right and what is wrong, to tell people, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. That's sometimes not necessary for the dialogue to continue. You don't always beat people over the head with what they did wrong. And also, you don't always congratulate people all the time for what they did right. Sometimes it's not about that. The discussion is not even about that. So we have to understand these things, and we have to understand each other as we dialogue in communities. And this is what I wanted to point out here in this this meme that I put out there. It's in and of itself, it's superficial how I wrote it up, but I really wanted to go into it. And this meme, by the way, hasn't gone out yet into social media, so you guys are the first to see these memes. Let's see what you guys are saying in the discussion section. Nobody's saying anything yet. Come on, guys, chat up a storm. This is why we need to internationally and worldwide, globally, etc. We need to talk. This is for dialogue. I want you guys to talk about this. These are the things that need to be talked about. So let's talk about it. All right. The last one I want to share with you guys is based on Batman's perception of Superman. And it's based on the same thing I was talking about. People with different powers of influence and resources to effect change. And it just so happened that Batman and Superman, they were on the same team. They were actually trying to do the same thing, but the certain power, which was via Lex Luthor, actually started to help to aid in them having a schism between them, especially on Batman's end of the spectrum, not so much on Superman's. And so let's look at that. Let's look at that in a little bit more detail. And what we're going to do actually is look at the bat signal and how in Justice League it was used properly and appropriately, and how in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice it was actually improperly used because of Batman's perception, Bruce Wayne's perception of Superman, which we saw at the beginning of Batman v Superman. His perception that Superman was more powerful than him, that he was being an elitist, that he was being authoritarian, that he was being a dictator, basically. This is his thoughts on Superman, and that Superman would bring about destruction because of that. And this is a view that a lot of people who are threatened, if you think in different countries, if immigrants start coming in your country a lot, you feel threatened by that. You know, refugees, because you feel like the power shift is about to happen. And similarly, Batman was afraid of a power shift happening in the world where Superman, if people would just agree with Superman all the way down, like Glenn Woodburn was saying, they would just follow him blindly, and it would lead into an authoritarian world and destruction. Sort of like, what's that? Like, it was based on Injustice. Injustice, God Among Us, or Superman Red Sun. Okay? So here you see, I'm going to show you parallels between Justice League and BVS. So on this side here is BVS, at least for the most part. And on this side is Justice League. And here we see parallels, in literally visual parallels, as well as contextually and story-wise parallels. So Batman in Batman v Superman, he improperly uses the bat signal to call Superman because of Superman's threat to him. Superman threatened, if they shine your light in the sky, don't go to it. The bat is dead. Bury it. So Batman, like the gangster like the gangster irritating guy that he is, decided, oh, I'm going to shine my own light in the sky and I'm going to wait for you. I'm going to wait for you, Superman. Oh, really? You going to threaten me like that? Oh, that's what it is, eh? Okay. So that when Superman finally shows up and lands, he says, well, here I am. Oh, yeah. But the bat signal was not made for Batman to call Superman with it, because basically he was calling Superman with it. That's not what the bat signal's for, right? So in Justice League, we finally see the bat signal used appropriately, where Commissioner Gordon, he properly uses the bat signal to call Batman. He was trying to find out some information. He said, I'm going to call him tonight. And he goes, he lights up his bat signal, and he's there waiting on Batman to come, okay? Whereas here, Batman is literally goading Superman, and he's daring him. Yeah, come through, Superman. I'm going to light up my own bat signal. And his intention is the wrong one. The bat signal was not made for that. The bat signal was made so that Batman could assist and help mankind. And here Batman is using the bat signal for something else. So Batman is looking up in the sky here. You see the bat signal up in the sky right there, waiting for Superman to make good on his threat, having prepared to kill him. So Batman's whole intent using the bat signal is a wrong one on so many levels. Here, he's using the bat signal to bring Superman there so he can kill Superman. And he thinks somehow in his twisted mind that by doing that, he's doing the world a favor. He's saying this is going to be my legacy. It's crazy. It's twisted. But we can see Lex Luthor kind of pushes him over the edge with that after he loses his family in Metropolis. And trust me, most logical thinking people, once they get carried away with their emotions, they go down this road. And we're seeing it in the United States of America. We're seeing it in Europe. You know, the whole England separating itself from the EU with Brexit is as a result of people feeling afraid of outcomes, not willing to really allow themselves to be part of change. And people are always afraid of change, and they think it's adversely affecting them, so they think it must be destroyed. And again, and even the anti-immigrant status is happening all over the world, where people are sort of trying to push immigrants out of their countries. In my country right now, there are a lot of Venezuelans coming across and working here and doing the best that they can. Yes, there's some criminal elements coming across. For the most part, most Venezuelans are coming across to this country, try and better themselves, because in Venezuela it's really rough right now. I know my mom has been talking to some friends over there. It's been really rough over there. And I actually have parentage that comes, my great grandmother on my dad's side, she came from Venezuela as refuge way back in the day. Okay. And my point being that, you know, there's talk about, you know, kicking some of the Venezuelans and throwing them back. Okay. If you're involved in some kind of crime, sure. If you're involved in prostitution and that kind of stuff, which is happening in my country, they're coming across as prostituting themselves. You can go back. But the majority of the Venezuelans coming across to this country, they're coming because it's hard in Venezuela. You know what I'm saying? It's hard in Venezuela. So they come across here to work and get jobs, and they're very diligent people and they work very hard. So that, you know, it's cool. And I can't be mad at them. You know what I mean? So like I said, you can't look at, oh, they're invading and they're taking our jobs, and no, they're not taking your jobs. First of all, most of the Mexican people, or most of the people that are influxed into the United States of America, they're not taking anything that you do. You have the same opportunity to get work as they do. You don't want to do those jobs. A lot of people don't want to do those jobs they're doing. And if they are doing them, then you wouldn't have to worry about employment. You should be employed even more. Besides that, there's enough innovation and jobs for people to start their own businesses. And this is where I talk about people, when they don't feel empowered, they resort to this thing. And you can see that Batman, in this case, he did not feel empowered. He felt powerless. As Alfred said, you know, helpless and powerless. And because he felt powerless, he was out to kill Superman, get rid of him, right? And he's going against everything. If you look at it, the bat signal is there, the flash in the sky. You're not supposed to flash at Batman. It's supposed to be somebody else. Flash it in the sky so that you would come. But nope. He decides, I'm going to just flash it, and I'm going to be right there. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right there because Superman threatened him. So anyway, but again, if you think about it, if Superman would have threatened you with that, wouldn't you react the same way? Let's go on. So if we contrast that, when Commissioner Gordon shone his light in the sky to get Batman, notice it wasn't Batman shining his signal to get himself. The other members of the League saw it. Now, two other members saw it who were with Batman. Flash, who Batman had just recruited, and Wonder Woman. You can see them right here. And there's the bat signal right there. And Flash draws it to everybody's attention. Look, that's your signal, Batman! He yells it out loud while there's all these people in the airport moving things from the plane. And then he goes, shh, to himself, which is really funny. He says, shh. Oh, yeah. I meant your signal. You know, it's up in the sky. Maybe we should go now. He's like, yeah, maybe we should go now. And Batman looks at Wonder Woman like, you know, he's excited. What can I say? It's me, you know. It's funny, man. It's just hilarious. But the interesting thing is, you know, other people who Batman was trying to recruit, you know, Cyborg, who Wonder Woman was trying to recruit. He sees the signal also right after he realizes his father's been abducted. And it's the irony that whereas this one here was misused, first of all, to get another guy to come on the scene so that you could kill him, This one here was for clarity. Commissioner Gordon was calling Batman to find out what's going on here. And it's all about the same topic, but other people see the signal. It's really ironic that Batman draws people together via his signal, which is a signal that is of help. When people want Batman to come on the scene because they need help, that's when he pops up. So there's that signal right there. And what happens? Well, and it's so interesting that here Batman's watching his own signal. It's so funny, man. It's hilarious, man. Dude be watching his own. You know what that says? It's showing how selfish the guy is, because that signal is really. But here's the absolute up. And he's supposed to watch his own signal because he's supposed to go to the signal. But my point is, here he is. He turns on his own signal and watches his own signal. Of course, he's waiting for Superman. And here, Commissioner Gordon turns on the signal, and he unknowingly doesn't realize he's bringing people like Cyborg to a scene. He's going to bring people like Cyborg to unite with the League, and the signal actually helps to unite the League. It's really crazy. So here we see both Commissioner Gordon and Batman. They're basically looking the same way. They're looking not up at the signal, but they're waiting in the sky for something. Commissioner Gordon, as you can see, he's looking up at the sky. He's looking for Batman. He finally sees Batman here on top of a gargoyle, symbolic of him seeing Batman above him, meaning Batman has the power to be able to help him with whatever he's doing. And it's very interesting that similarly, Batman here is looking up in the sky waiting on Superman, and Superman appears above him as well, showing that he has a godlike power that's greater than Batman. He has a greater ability to do certain things than Batman. So he can fly, so therefore he's above Batman. He's stronger than Batman, right? Okay. So you see the parallels here. Superman shows up. Batman wanted to get Superman. He did. Commissioner Gordon did the right thing. He was trying to get Batman. There's Batman. And then very interestingly enough, the extra, the plus, and this is why going in the way of light, going in the way of goodness pays off, people. When Batman descends, he's accompanied by other people to Commissioner Gordon's surprise. All of these people here. And this guy, he comes and joins the League. He unites the League. Batman unites the League through his symbol. And now we have Commissioner Gordon, we got Wonder Woman, we got Cyborg, we got Batman, we got Flash. And for the first time also, Commissioner Gordon meets the rest of the members of the League. He's never met the rest. He always, is Batman alone. Which causes Commissioner Gordon a little later on in the story, after, they've had this battle with Steppenwolf underground in the underground tunnel event that's a tower. You hear Commissioner Gordon say, it's good to see you playing well with others. And that's kind of interesting because he's basically acknowledging that, hey, you got a couple other people with you. That's kind of cool. He's never seen that before. And he was just shining a bat signal into the sky in the right way to get Batman. That was all he was getting, to get some clarity on things. And he got so much more, And I just thought that was so cool. And so the summary here says, in BVS Dawn of Justice, the bat signal was used incorrectly to push heroes apart in conflict. We don't want to push each other apart in conflict, folks. We want to bring people together. Okay? Yes, we can disagree on things, but it's about coming together. And Justice League was this movie that symbolized that. Batman's attitude in Justice League is different to his attitude in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And when we see the bat signal used correctly in Justice League to summon Batman, surprisingly, it brings more heroes together than expected. Okay? The guy, Cyborg, who was undecisive about Wonder Woman, joining the League and stuff, he comes on board. And just a little bit further down the line, Aquaman comes on board with the League, not because of the bat symbol, though. So this symbol now means more than just Batman. It means more than just to Gotham. Now it's a symbol of unity. The Batman v Superman in Batman. The Batman with Superman in him. Superman's all about inclusion. And finally, we see an inclusive Batman. He's adopting the qualities of Superman, the hopefulness. And so it's symbolic of Batman's quest to unite and build that we see in Justice League instead of divide and destroy, as in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And so in our communities, we must be able to understand the different people with the different power levels. That is, the different people in our communities with greater impact and influence to effect change. So then when we look here, we will see that we have Commissioner Gordon, who's like the head of law enforcement in your community. We see Wonder Woman, who's like a god. She's like a judge, a feared judge, somebody probably in the high political arena of your community, you know, or maybe somebody who's a very powerful business person in your community. All of these people, if they're just and they're really looking for the betterment of the community, it's good to have them on board in your little localized community. Cyborg's like the tech guy, and the Flash is like those people who can execute things very quickly. And of course, Batman is like the uniting force, as well as he was more of a loner, wanted to do things by himself. It kind of reminds us of each and every one of us here on the internet. Your community can be internet based. It can be your community, which is much more far reaching and global. It can be your family. It can be just your little neighborhood. It could be just your street. Whatever it is, there are always going to be these varied people with varied influence on it. It could be someone who's a public figure in your community who has a lot of influence because of people listen to what they say. So at the end of the day, you must be able to pool all these people together. This is what affects change in your community. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And if you guys have any other points or discussion you want to discuss, please let it be available in the chat section. But I wanted to show you this sort of approach that you need to have in each and every community on whatever discussion or subject you have. And the more you guys dialogue together, interface each other, not just on specific projects and specific missions, but also you dialogue and interface with one another, is the stronger the ties you will have between each other, get to know each other better, and therefore be able to affect change even more. Business communities are very important. Business in communities is very important. They employ most people. They are able to sponsor certain events. They're able to sort of sponsor and influence change in attitudes of people towards certain things. So the business community is very important. The legislature community inside of your community is very important for laws that allow individuals and businesses to be able to have the flexibility to enhance and to build communities. And then, of course, you must have the enforcers, which would be your police and your defense, whether it's the National Guard, etc., in your communities. Their role is not just to protect, but also to facilitate programs which can better allow the communities to come closer together. For instance, law enforcement can also have programs and host sporting events that would help the community. The military can also host scholarship programs and other things like that to, again, help people become educated, etc. You know, the military doesn't only have to do military things like defend and shoot. They can also be avenues for further education, for further understanding of history of a community. We have museums, we have schools. They are supposed to educate and, again, inform us. Museums, particularly of special things and histories of the communities, and also the special cultural landmarks that these communities are showcase. Then we need to always have the tourism aspect of our communities. What makes our communities different to other communities that will want other people from other communities come see our communities? And finally, if I must leave that last but not least, the healthcare aspect of our communities, the health and well-being, whether it be psychological health or physical health. So you must have this widespread, and they must, these different arms must communicate. And you can start at the smallest possible level, which is with family and friends, and you can go bigger towards your, neighborhoods, to bigger towards, your the average person, and look at people in different tiers of influence in those communities and how you want to structure that. Now, I speak all of these things so you guys can understand. R2 Lemon says, just got home from the gym. Cool, man. That's awesome. He says, hopefully Gordon has seen the Bat family before. It's good to see you working with others again. Maybe. I don't know. But what I'm saying to you guys is that in the scheme of things, these movies, I think, sort of show us how we can interface with people with different abilities in our community and different influences in our communities. and magnify that, because out of the league coming together through proper approach to things, you know, we see a proper approach to Commissioner Gordon soliciting Batman, and in addition, he got so much more resources than that, and he got so much more insight into what was happening. If Wonder Woman was there, she can identify those things as parademons, for instance. If Cyborg wasn't there, he can suggest the alternative path to where these people may have been kidnapped and where they could be found. And Commissioner Gordon, working along with all these people, a human working along with gods and with you know, people with great abilities and powers, was able to crack the case. Now, my point being that Justice League shows us the way forward. Batman v Superman, you know, people praise that movie a lot, but while that movie showed us the way forward with respect to Superman, it really wasn't fully resolved. We saw a much more complete movie, and a movie that really can give us answers in Justice League more than did BVS. BVS was more of social commentary, and through Superman, we saw that you should still prevail in trying to inspire the people and build hope and build community, even if it costs you your life. So it was more of a sacrificial, more Shakespearean. But Justice League actually has much more meat to it in terms of how we approach community, how we build with each other, than does Justice League, I believe. That's why I wanted to just show you guys this video. And again, a lot of people will say, hey, you know what? In Justice League, that's more like the Batman we know, because that is more like the Batman you know. This Batman is not on vindictiveness and stuff. He's more of, he's not as inclusive, you know, because he's been working by himself. So he's challenged to be inclusive with others. But at the end of the day, that's the Batman we know from Justice League. And it's nice seeing the transition from Batman in BVS to the Batman we see in Justice League, especially that he's an older Batman. I really particularly liked it and appreciated what Zack Snyder was doing. And that's why I said again, you cannot see Justice League as a bad movie, because when you look at the details and you look at actually what this movie is saying. Now, some of you want to discuss on a superficial level, you know, and talk about those kinds of things, and that's all well and good. But for me, I look at how this can translate into us making better communities and better edify each and every one of us in here. That's why I'm broadcasting this. I'm suggesting certain things that people could utilize and use and empower them, because whereas Batman did not feel empowered and he had to beat down Superman to empower himself, here we see that this is a very empowering moment where the Batman is summoned by Commissioner Gordon, and not only does he get Batman, he gets all the gods, all the godlike people with special abilities, and by putting their heads together, they're able to crack a case and be able to do great and fantastic things that supersede what Batman could ever in his wildest dreams do. So I'm trying to show you that the antagonism that we have sometimes to other people on other, what we call different pay scales, because they're rich or whatever. You don't know if these people worked hard for it or if their parents worked hard for it and they're benefiting the benefits of that. So let's not try to, in our communities, excommunicate people because we feel they're elitist or they're higher than us or they are smarter than us or whatever. Similarly, those people who are in those positions of influence, let's not put down other people who we think we're smarter than or we have more money than. We have to work together. We're in this thing together. And when you have greater influence, and that's why I wanted to use this platform, and that's why I was telling you guys the last day that I don't want to use this platform to bash and to curse and swear and put down the MCU and bash MCU fanboys. I need to approach it in a much more responsible way, because I have a platform, and this platform is going to have influence, and I have to think about how I'm actually going to bring forth this influence to other people. And so I know better. So that's why I had to pull that video, because it wasn't wise to do those things. And of course, if somebody recorded it or whatever and they keep my video, I don't really care, because honestly, the point behind why I pulled it down was not because I want people to see me a certain way. I don't really care about that. I care about the fact that it could have an influence in a negative way on somebody else who feels now that he's done it, I could do it too. That's the thing that bothered me. And that's why I pulled it down. So we have to be responsible as much as we possibly can with the greater powers and influence we have to make the world a better place. And so that's what I was trying to highlight here. And you see the multiplication effect of doing so. Just imagine if Commissioner Gordon did not signal to Batman to come. If he didn't do that and he decided, no, Batman is, you're right, he's probably gone off his deep end, then this would never have happened. They would not have coalesced like they did. So I want you to see the difference between Batman's approach and the difference in Commissioner Gordon's approach and Batman's approach as well in between BVS and Justice League, and why Justice League is really the Batman you really want. You want Justice League's Batman, not BVS's Batman. So I hope that that was beneficial to one and all. Let's just see what you guys are saying in the comment section. And you guys have nothing more to say in the comment section. Don't forget you can share these videos. These videos hopefully can enhance and help other people's lives. That's the whole point behind these videos. If you guys have anything to say and comment on, I was hoping you guys would comment in between my video, but you didn't. So if you have anything you want to comment in this video, please feel free to comment in the video, because, you know, we want to have a discussion on these things. And it was nice to see two of you guys commenting on it. R2 Lemon was commenting a minute ago. Video game Vision Quest. Like you said, you're dead on again. That these movies, you know, they're there to inspire you, to empower you, to do something, to make a difference. You as singly and you collectively. R2 Lemon says just got home. Okay, so R2 Lemon again. Once again, you were talking about the Bat Family, that he had seen the Bat Family before. Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't. We know that in the Snyder Cut, he would have seen, he would have said, it's good to see you working with others again. They cut it out in the Justice League movie that's playing in theaters. He didn't say again. But either way, whether it's again or not, the point still lies that it had a multiplication effect by him working with the League, because he was trying to pull a League together. Commissioner Gordon eventually pulled in the resources of everyone, almost everyone from the League, which was really awesome. And so that's what I really enjoyed seeing. And I think when Commissioner Gordon actually made that statement, Aquaman pops up. So another one of them popped up that Commissioner Gordon hadn't seen before. This is why he said it's good to see you working well with others again, because it's another one popped up, you know. And I thought it was interesting. And you know, there's another funny thing. I remember when Commissioner Gordon looks, he kind of tilts his head like this and says, "How many of you are there?" And then and Bruce says, "Not enough." You know, it's pretty funny. So yeah, I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Brighten the corner where you are. And remember, you can do it in a localized kind of way first, with people you know, dealing with real issues. And it's nice for you to start identifying the people around you. What is their influence? What is their impact? What is their skill sets? And have dialogue with them. Don't be afraid, because they're probably have a lot of influences and a lot of clout or power or money or resources or whatever. That doesn't mean they're not people like you. And what you can learn, you know, this is another thing I want to tell people. You don't have to ask money from people, but one thing you should always ask people who are successful or they have a certain degree of success or influence in society, is ask them how they were able to tap into that, how they figured out how they got there. That's one of the things you can ask people. I think it's very important to ask people in your community who you know, who have been successful, ask them how they do. And you would be surprised. 9 out of 10 of them would like to sit down with you and have a discussion about that, because you're trying to be better at whatever you're doing. So if you're unemployed, for instance, and you go to a business owner and you realize he's successful at what he's doing and he's employing a lot of people, maybe you can ask him, instead of asking him for employment, maybe you can ask him how he got to where he was. How did he know to pick up business and do this? And if he has any tips for you. Now, some people, they're not going to tell you anything. You know, those are not the people you want anyway. So at least by asking, you know, to eliminate them from your list. But for the other people, the people who are interested in encouraging you like that and telling you more about it, get to know these people. And you may be surprised if you step out on your own 2 feet and they see you really pushing and really furthering yourself, they would even try to assist you in the goals that you're doing. But once you're not a burden to them. So I just want to suggest that to you guys in terms of business. I think it's very empowering when you actually are earning your own keep, earning your own money, being your own boss. There's something beautiful about that. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. If you look at the dynamic in Justice League, where the Flash, he needs encouragement from Batman. He's very honest about the fact that he's overwhelmed by a certain situation, and he's looking for some sort of tidbit or advice of what to do. And Batman gives him some pretty good advice. And similarly in life, that's why we talk about mentorship. Sometimes you're stumped, you're overwhelmed with the situation, and you need support. And that's where community comes in. And sometimes you just need somebody who's walked that road with you, like Batman did. He was, you know, very seasoned in fighting and stuff. And so that person can tell you what your strengths are and what you can do. You remember the Flash presented to Batman his strengths. His thing was, look, man, I just push people and run away. Okay. So Batman was like, okay, fine. So use your speed to save people. Get in, get out, don't talk, just go, get in, get out. And it makes sense. And so, you know, when you talk to the right people about the skits you have, the right people about what you desire to do and how to deal with this, and you know, you don't know how to deal with this situation, they can give you the right advice. Of course, you got to kind of know them. But the point is that that's what community is about. It's about problem solving, about dealing with the issues that directly face it, and being able to have the power to empowerment, not to resort on governments or to resort to other businesses outside the community, but to actually deal with their issues in-house, find solutions, and then be able to produce results. And that's the thing that I want you guys to get: empowerment, whether it's the internet or wherever, to be able to find the answers right there within your own little sphere of influence. Because there are people in your sphere of influence, like I said, who are like godlike beings. They have a lot of influence and an impact and a lot of power. Other people a little bit below them. Maybe you're above some of the people who need impact and influence. And if you guys would just work together and understand each other, their strengths and weaknesses, you would be able to solve any problem you have within your community sphere without even depending on centralized government for it. Maybe with respect to laws to free up certain things, but otherwise. And in your community, there are lawmakers, there's everybody. There's lawmakers, there's the medical people, there's the defense people, there's the protective services. Everybody's there in your community. So if you want to really target racism, systematic and otherwise, start with your communities. Start right where you are. Start right in the corner. It's not easy. As the scripture said here, he says, I'm afflicted very much, when he tries to walk that path, and he asks the Lord to quicken him. And you're going to need strength from goodness. You're going to need strength from God, you know, to do this and implement it. And as you get more strength from God, you will be, you know, you'll be supported more. That's to say, some of the people with like-mindedness like you who are goodness, they'll support you as you move along. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes, unfortunately. But fortunately for us, God can help us overcome those things and not make those same mistakes in the future. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Shout out to you all. I know you guys like to keep things sometimes very comic booky and comic centric. I personally like to talk about building communities. And you see, I take comic book movies and I try to paint that picture for you guys. Oh, there's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, so I might as well throw it up there real quick. A lot of people don't know a certain thing about Zack Snyder, so I'm going to show you some stuff about Zack Snyder right now. Hold on a second. Okay, so Zack Snyder. Okay, I'm going to let you guys see this. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this. Let's see if I can do it like this. I don't know. Screen share. Okay, we have screen share right now. So you guys should be able to see this right here. Okay. Zack Snyder is interesting because there's a couple things, you know, All right, let's start with the very important thing. His early life. Now, for those of you who don't know, Zack Snyder, he comes from a family, okay? He comes from a family where he was raised as a Christian Scientist. But here's the interesting thing. His mother, whose name is Marcia Manley, she was a painter and a photography teacher at Daycroft School, which Snyder later attended, okay? His father was an executive recruiter. So he was raised as a Christian Scientist. All right. Why that's important is because his mother inspired him to study painting a year after high school at Heatherley School of Fine Art in England, although he had already been filmmaking. And then afterwards, Snyder attended Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California. So when people talk about Zack Snyder, his work seems to always look painting like. It's not. If you do any still of Zack Snyder's work, you know, it looks very painting like. Literally looks like a set of paintings, not just like comic book reels, but they actually look like paintings. It's because Zack Snyder, his mother used to paint, and he also went to fine art schools, and he actually did fine art. Okay? So it's very important to understand that Zack Snyder, why he has so much detail and why he seems it feels like high art when you look at his films, is because he literally studied the history of art. I think somewhere else it talks about him studying the history of art. He also has a Christian background. So these are all very interesting things for people to remember when you talk about Zack Snyder. There's another interesting thing I want to talk about, which is that Zack Snyder, you know, people are talking about the Fountainhead. That's one of the things that he was working on. But I think he's also working on something called The Last Photograph, which is about a drama about a war photographer in Afghanistan. So I would like to know a little bit more about The Last Photograph. That looks like a very interesting story he's doing there. And he's been working on it since March of 2016. So that's very interesting. He's working on something like that. So even though he's doing The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, he's also looking at The Last Photograph. So I'm very interested in both to see what he depicts and what his explanation for certain things are. There's also something else he had as a project somewhere along the line. I don't know if he'll be doing it anymore, but he was supposed to do a remake of the 1969 film, The Illustrated Man. And I thought that's interesting. I don't know what that is about either. So I thought I'd give you guys these interesting tidbits about Zack Snyder and why it is that he does all these empowerment films. If you look at The Legend of Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, it's an empowerment film. Sucker Punch is an empowerment film. Watchmen is a interesting film. It is somewhat like a nihilism in some respects about what is necessary. And the story is kind of a thriller, but at the end of the day, it's what is necessary. So it's more nihilistic. But if you look at 300, it's an inspirational film about how Greece was able to break the yoke under the Persian Empire. Dawn of the Dead was more of a survival film. It's an interesting take on Dawn of the Dead as well. But for the most part, if you look at his most recent films, mostly Sucker Punch, Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and now Justice League. If you look at his most recent films, they've all been empowerment films. All of them have been empowerment films. And it's very interesting. I mean, 300 was also an empowerment film, but, you know, it's very interesting that he comes from a certain perspective. And so I wanted to share that with you guys and help you guys to understand the context sometimes in which this guy may bring out his stuff. bring out his stuff. Now, people talk about Zack Snyder. He only has he's known for his slow-mo in his films. Yeah, he has some slow-mo in his films, but I don't think that's the key to his style. I think his style is more the painting, like meticulous, detailed way of looking at things. I think that's what Zack is, I think, best, in my opinion, considered by me. I like also his double entendres or his multiple meanings behind things. You know, I find that very intriguing as well. One statement can mean multiple things. And I was supposed to do a breakdown on something that I saw which had multiple meanings to it, but I forgot to do that. I tell you, his movies are very rich, in my opinion. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. R2 Lemonade says, I just followed in Twitter by Best of Snyder after I tweeted a few things about BVS in a thread about post Man of Steel DCEU. Oh, that's cool, man, R2. I don't know if I have you on Twitter, but it'd be nice if you could hit me up. My Twitter is AEPGM42. So you can hit me up on that, and maybe I can see what's happening in your feed if I follow you. Type it in. But the point behind Zack Snyder is not, I'm not trying to worship him or anything, guys. I'm just trying to show you, again, the context from which he comes from and how we can use that as a broader base to improve communities and better each other and our lives while we are here. Anyway, it's 2:29 p.m. I got to get out and do some work. It was really nice talking with you guys. Sometime, hopefully, in a hangout, we can actually dialogue with one another on a continuous basis. I hope that these videos provide some sort of nutritive value to you guys. Oh, by the way, this was a photo that Zack Snyder did showing the behind-the-scenes footage of when Commissioner Gordon, I don't know if you can see him, maybe you can't see him here, when Commissioner Gordon is actually looking at Batman on these gargoyles. And I found it very intriguing. Of course, Zack Snyder shot that whole entire scene with Commissioner Gordon and the gargoyles. Actually, this is a picture from, I forgot what the guy's name is, his photographer taking a picture of this. And, Whedon chose to probably change up the certain shot selection that was used. But I'm pretty sure Whedon didn't have anything to do with the shooting of this. And so I just find this really cool. And the fact that, again, very picturesque. A lot of this stuff is like paintings. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This, okay, like this here, this scene here with Batman is very painting-like. It even feels like it's painting-like in motion. It feels like a comic strip, but it still feels very painting-like, beautiful painting-like. And I remember the advertisement for the Justice League. It felt like it felt something like the comic book paintings that this famous comic book DC comic book, the guy who did the illustration for Kingdom Come, it felt like that famous kind of painting in some sorts of ways, but even much more classical painting. And it was just a photo. And remember, Zack Snyder, he studied photo and as well as paintings and the history. And he also did a lot of history, study of history and stuff like that. So it's just really cool to see, this beautiful kind of flowing painting-like look throughout. Even this bat signal here in the sky feels very painting-like, as if somebody took a paintbrush and actually paint this stuff. So when you hear people now talking about, Thor Ragnarok and all these things, oh, they like painting-like, I'm like, get out of here, man. Just get out of here. It annoys me to no end that these people would just troll and say these things loosely. Zack Snyder, he literally has a background in that stuff, and so even here, this look here looks very painting-like, and it's kind of the foreground's kind of blurred out, and even and of course there's pieces of set here, and then there's pieces of CG in the background. So there's CG and set. This is again beautiful in that some of the lightning is real. There's actual flashes of light they use, but the sky is actually CG. It's painted. It's just beautiful stuff, man. I like that he merged it. So people say it's like you're living in a comic book. I would say it's like a high quality comic book in which they really did wonderful artwork. It's kind of like that, in that there are panels that you're moving by, but I always feel like it's more than just panels. It's like real art come to life. That's what I feel. And so Zack Snyder's thing is real high art come to life, in my opinion. I've been following you for some time already. I just tweeted you a Ralph Wiggum GIF. Who's Ralph Wiggum? Oh, well, I guess I'll find out. But yeah, I just wanted to share this stuff with you guys. It's nice talking with you, R2. Video Game Vision Quest. It was nice talking to you too. Shout out to all my peoples out there who continue to do positive things with their lives and are trying to positively impact their communities. I got to go now, but I hope you guys have a blessed day. Maybe you'll get another stream before the end of the day. I got to put these memes up now on social media. I'll try and check you guys out on Twitter. I'll try and share some things around on Twitter also concerning Justice League. And hopefully you guys can do the same. Also, you guys can also get in touch with Dave Ethan's Google group, which is, I think, DCEU Positive Sentimental, DCEU Positive. You can check it out on Google. And, let's try to aid and bless other people as we go through this day. Let's try and be intentional about that. You guys have a great one and have a great day. Peace.